More states reaching breaking point as a coronavirus pandemic hits new highs.
A dire picture of a virus spiraling out of control.
We believe we're going to have to be taking additional steps.
The problem is that this is an evolving situation. Literally every day we learn a little bit more about it.
The National Guard now rushing in to relieve prison inmates who are currently moving COVID victims into mobile morgues.
To exercise resilience, some change in circumstances must have happened. Some change in circumstances must have happened. The idea is to understand your belief system. Your beliefs impact your feelings. Your feelings impact how you think about things, and your thoughts ultimately impact how you act and respond. I discovered this truth not through some bolt from the clouds, some specific aha moment, but from going through and escaping my own hell.
Welcome to Real Talk with Jean Price. I am so glad you tuned in today. We have a wonderful show that's going to be going on tonight. We want you to tell your friends. Listen, we want you to tell your friends to come, tell your families to come. We want to hear firsthand what it's like to be a nurse on the front line. But before we do that, I want you to like, I want you to comment, and I want you to share. We're in the springtime and the weather is getting beautiful out. We want everybody to join Real Talk with Jean Price. There is always a message with our guests, something that's always said to enlighten what's going on in the world today. We have our t-shirts. We're still taking orders as they're coming in. We want you to email us at sobeitmedia.com. You want to get a t-shirt? We're lining it up. We want you to come, and you never know, I may have you be a guest on Real Talk with Jean Price. If you wear your t-shirt, I promise you, I will wear mine. We are also featured on the Inspired Living Network. It's an exciting network to be a part. I'm grateful to be a part of that family where our show airs, and people are loving Real Talk with Jean Price. Again, another two that we're grateful for. Now, as we begin to go into our show tonight, we can all agree that COVID-19 was a hard-hit pandemic that touched the lives of so many. We had losses, we had pains. We began to live in a world with such uncertainty. Well, today, we are going to honor our sheroes who stood, who loved, who helped the world that appeared to be lost. They did jobs that was hard. They did jobs that were not easy. They were worn out. They also had families too. But nonetheless, we honor them today for the work that they have done. I want you to help me welcome my guests tonight, Jessica Leclerc and Marlou Desir. Welcome to Real Talk. Thank you, ladies. Sheroes, thank you so much for doing Real Talk.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I could not wait. As we were talking backstage, I really am excited to have you, both of you ladies, on the show tonight. Before we get started, I want to know a little bit about you. I want to know, what made you become a nurse? First, I'm going to start with you, Jessica. Tell me about, why did you become a nurse?
Okay, so literally my whole family's in healthcare. My mom is a respiratory therapist. My dad is a nurse. My sister's a nurse, and so of course I would have to follow suit.
Of course.
So I actually started as a PCA for 7 years in a hospital setting. My healthcare career when I was 19, and then I just was like, you know what? Let me start going into the nursing field because I love this field so much, and I've been in different units, so it kind of pushed me towards going into nursing school.
That's beautiful. Marlou, tell me, why did you become a nurse?
So just kind of like Jessica, a lot of people in my family and culturally, like, medicine is a sure thing. So I thought I was going to be a doctor. Like, I just thought I was going to be a pediatrician. And when I was like 17, my father had prostate cancer. And in visiting him all the time, like it was the nurse who I felt was like making an impact. That's the one who I knew, like no disrespect to doctors, but that's
Right.
the one who was present and I felt like made a difference. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
That's beautiful. Well, our guests are already chiming in, ladies. Stacy wrote good evening and to everyone, of course. And she wanted to say thank you for all the frontline workers. And also Charlene Stewart chimed in and she gave you some claps. Thank you. See, I tell you, you're Sheroes. You're Sheroes. Okay, let's get started on the show tonight. And thank you for sharing with us why you became a nurse. I was saying backstage to the ladies that I've talked, and Darlou helped me out with this one. We talked about, we had teachers, we had students, we had parents talking about what it was like to go through a world of uncertainty dealing with COVID-19. But I want to know from you, Marlou, what was it like being on the front line?
So for me, I've been actually this week makes 10 years that I've been a nurse.
Wow.
Yeah, I just celebrated my anniversary, if you will. It is so surreal. I work with my specialty is pediatric hematology, oncology, and bone marrow transplant. So I already deal with sick kids, and COVID added another level that thankfully they're resilient. I will say that children are resilient in a way we don't know, but it's scary because you don't know the effects. You don't know, especially in the beginning, how they respond, how it, shows itself, and scary and uncertain, to put it mildly.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Jessica, for you, Jessica is a telemetry cardiac nurse.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. As Marlou was talking about children, of course, you have the adults.
Yes.
There were so many people, Jessica, that were on ventilators. Tell us what it was like being on the front line.
Honestly, it was really like when I first started, I was not expecting COVID to happen. Working in telemetry, like I literally started in January and COVID hit in March.
Wait a minute. What?
Yeah, so I started telemetry in January and like literally as soon as March hit, COVID hit. So it was like, okay, whatever you learned, you're gonna have to put it to the test and you're
Oh,
gonna have
yes.
to do it fast. So I literally learned that and it was scary because I've met so many young patients too that the next day didn't make it. So it was hard and imagine these are young people who have kids, who has wives, husbands, and it kind of hurt because they couldn't allow visitors, they couldn't have all of those things. So trying to get a FaceTime before they can see their
Wow.
family,
Yes.
it was just hard. And like honestly, a lot of us cried in the back in the break room, and we try to hold our patients' hands and say, we trying to tell them, we're going to try our best, but you never know, especially with COVID. Like, especially the first wave was just insane. Like,
My
we
Lord.
couldn't catch up. We had to ask for ventilators. We had to make sure we had gears because we didn't even have enough. So
Right.
that kind of took a toll on us too. So it was scary, but honestly, day by day, I prayed. And I was just like talking to my family because they were also going
Right.
through it too. Because
Right. Right.
my mom is a respiratory therapist, so she was dealing with COVID
That's
patients as
right.
well. And
Mhm.
my dad, he was working in a nursing home, so he was dealing with COVID over there. So it's a lot. It took a toll on all of us. So the best we could do is just pray and just keep
Yes.
talking to each other and just encouraging each other to, remember to put your gears on and
Yes.
stay safe and just keep doing what you got to do and making sure we checked in with each other, just to make sure we were all good.
That's right. Marlo, you mentioned to us backstage that you have twins.
yes,
What
I
was
do.
it like in a world? We talked about this COVID-19. You're a pediatric nurse and you have twins. How did you balance dealing with pediatric children that are sick? And you've been doing this for 10 years, as you mentioned, but then you go home and you have to deal with your children. How did you handle that emotionally? Because that to me that's hard. That's even
Right.
harder. You know what I mean? Just,
Yes.
that's hard.
I it's a lot. And I am thankful for the village that I have, that when I'm at work, I know that they're taken care of. My mother also works in a nursing home, so she knows what it is and she knows what it's like. And it's kind of like you to stay sane, honestly, you have to like just separate it. Like home
Okay.
is home, work
Okay.
is work. That's when you have to like, mentally prepare yourself because like you got to be strong for your patients, but you have to be strong for the people who depend on you at home too.
That's
You
right.
know, you
Yeah.
have to find an outlet. You have to find a healthy outlet because there's many ways you can go about it. To just kind of try to balance it, to find your normal, to find your peace so that you can be functional and, you know, useful because it doesn't help if I'm a mess over there, a mess at home. It's no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even to what you're saying, and I'm going to get Jessica's response as well. The numbers just kept climbing. Like it was so insane last year this time, in dealing with COVID-19. Marlo, how did you deal with the fact of the numbers just climbing? It just seemed like the whole world was just rapidly moving. COVID was rapidly moving. So how do you deal with how the numbers were just going like crazy? They were climbing bad.
It, it's crazy because especially in New York was hard hit. And,
Wow.
it's like I don't think people really grasped how crazy it was. Like you'd be on the road and it'd be you and maybe three cars. But when you get to the hospital, it's another world. It's another world because just the protocols that you have to do to make sure that
Okay.
you're protected. You want to make sure that, they were running out of N95s. You want to make sure that they're fitted right. You want to
Mm,
I can't even describe. And it was crazy because a lot of the time parents weren't bringing their kids in for regular, because let's not forget, people are still regular sick. COVID
right.
is happening, but
Exactly.
heart
Exactly.
attacks are still happening, everything, and people are afraid. And so a lot of times they had some of the pediatric nurses go over to the adult side. So,
Okay.
yeah. So it's already a foreign world for me to deal with adults per se,
Mm-hmm.
and to deal with adults in COVID that I don't have experience with, to try to help. Because I mean, if I think I have it bad, what about the people who have, like, this is their job, they do this every day? Like, I'm
Right.
kind of just stepping in.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What about for you, Jessica? And Marlo brought up some great points. But we're talking about the rise in the numbers, and let's just bring this point in before you respond. It wasn't just the rise in the numbers; the fear factor was risen too. Like I have nothing to do with hospital. Don't want anything to do with being a nurse, nothing like that. So we're on the opposite side, and we're just being honest. It doesn't mean I didn't have faith, but I'm just saying, right? As the numbers were rising, Jessica, fear was rising. So how did you deal with that?
Honestly, let me tell you, one day it was 3 patients with COVID, and then all of a sudden it turned to the whole unit was COVID.
Wow.
So we were like, okay, what do we do? Like, what do we give? Because remember, during the first wave, they were switching medications a lot. So they were
Yeah,
like, okay, this medication is gonna work, and this, the media was hot with heavy with what is it,
yeah,
hydrochloroquine?
that.
Yes.
So they were trying that, and I just felt like I was like, I am not a fan of this medication. I don't think it's helping.
Right.
And a lot of the doctors felt it wasn't helping either. So now imagine now everybody's coming in, everybody's like, well, this is the medication that I'm supposed to get, and like now you have patients that are not respiratory breathing. Because listen, I do monitors, I listen to heart rhythms. This is a whole
Yes.
different take because now it's respiratory. It's not just
Mhm.
respiratory, it's your heart. You also have a lot of them on heparin drips because of blood clots, and they're
That's
trying to just help them out, help them with
right.
breathing. Like people started with breathing fine, then they need to be on nasal cannula for supplemental oxygen. It like went so quick, and I was like, wow, like what are we gonna do? Because
Right.
we was running out of space to put patients. Like they had to open other units, and when I transferred to LIJ, like we had mother baby nurses come and help us on the floor as PCAs because
Wow.
they didn't have the
Okay.
experience with the adult population with all of this.
Sure.
So it was mostly telemetry ICU nurses, that were mostly doing the COVID patients because this is our population. This is what we
Right.
deal with, you know?
Right.
So they try to send mother, baby nurses, pediatric nurses just to help us out, just to make the load a little bit less lighter. So more lighter. So it helped us. And like, you know, we appreciated everybody helping us because it was just crazy. And honestly, like the amount of family that calls and you're trying to get all of them and like you're trying to make them talk to their family, but also you're trying to make sure you're watching your patients so they don't code. And you know, this is where your ACLS and your BLS comes in handy. So
And to me, I'm like, what does that mean?
so BLS is basic life support. This is your
Okay.
CPRs. And advanced ACLS is your advanced cardiac life support. So this is when you're doing if the heart rate goes low or high, you're giving adenosine, atropine, these medications. You're doing chest compressions, you're putting on the Zol. That's also to help with, you know, if their rhythm is different and they need a defibrillator. So it's a lot. It was a lot, and we had to make sure we was moving fast because the amount of people coming in and the amount of nurses that we didn't have, we had to get out service nurses to come in.
Yes, I remember that.
So it was intense. The first wave was really intense. It was so crazy, and a lot of us cried. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, a lot of us cried. A lot of us had out each other's backs, and we feel like our nose was tearing. We was having so much marks because we had to wear these masks, N95 masks, surgical masks for 12 hours plus. So imagine, you know, people only wear it for a couple of hours, come home, you could take it off. We had to wear it at all times. On top of that, the shield. On top of that, our gowns. On top of that, gloves. On top of that, you know, sometimes we had shoe coverings as well. So it was a lot. It was a lot.
Backstage, Marlou says something that was interesting. She not only is a nurse, she was a teacher and a mom. Trying to balance, how did you balance? We just have to know, how did you balance all of that? I know you have a great community, you have a village, I get it. But I'm talking about the Marlou inside. How did you balance all of that? That's a lot.
The grace of God.
There you go.
Because it's a lot. It's a lot. And functioning on naps. Like, what's sleep? I can't relate. Yes, because I work overnight. So, you know, you come home after a long day and it's just like, okay, now it's time to log on. You know what I mean? And they're 7. So, and they're also not used to this. This is also an adjustment for them. So where they're usually engaged and everything like that, now you have to make sure they're on top of it. Now you have to learn what they're learning, because how can I help them if I don't know what's going on? And in the beginning, the schools didn't know what they were doing. It was just like, here's an assignment, make it happen, make it work, log on this time, be off on that time. It's a lot. I think it's one of those things where you kind of have to go on autopilot, because if you really stop and think about what you're doing, you will just like crumble at the thought of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know, I was saying to our guests that's watching, I was saying to the ladies, to the Sheros tonight, how last year this time I had a blood clot in my head, and they haven't per se confirmed that it was because I did have COVID. I actually had the stroke. My husband had COVID, and then all of a sudden I had COVID. My point in bringing that up again is that for people like us, were you ever afraid? Like, were you ever like, did I make the right decision in becoming a nurse? Because me being the patient, having gone through that experience, of course, COVID, I think in March just went crazy. But being a patient and having gone through having COVID here in my home, there were times, and I mentioned it, it's not that I didn't have faith. I was struggling with my faith over fear, because I know God didn't give me that. But I still, in my humanity, and I think I said it in one of my promo videos, who said that I wasn't supposed to be afraid? I understood I had to overcome it. We understand that. But were you ever afraid?
I'm going to tell you, there was times where I was like, I don't think I could do this anymore. I don't think I could do it. And then like my mom would be like, listen, this is what God put you in the place to help others. you wanted to do this. So, you got to pray God. You have to have faith. I know sometimes you can lose it. The story of Job where it's like, he lost faith, but then
Yes, he
kept
did.
praying. And it's like, they kept on telling me, like, you have to have faith. Sometimes there's going to be times where you lose it. Sometimes you'll be like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. But
Right.
I just kept talking to them, and I was just like, you're right. I signed up for this. This is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to take care of other people, teach them, educate them, work with them,
Beautiful.
and, tell them how to get better and just keep moving forward. So I just kept thinking about that. And I honestly made sure I did the best for each patient that I had, whether they survived or not. Because I wanted to make sure their last moments
Mm.
wasn't them thinking, oh God, my nurse wants to give up. I wanted them to think that, okay, my nurse is not giving up on me, so let me continue to not give up on myself.
Right. Right.
So you kind of have faith, and you got to show your patients that you have faith too, because they're scared. They're
Yeah.
they're more scared because I've never had COVID by the grace of God through this whole
Right.
pandemic.
Right.
So they are scared because they have it. And then they're thinking about, okay, a lot of people are not surviving. Am I gonna survive this?
Yeah.
So I had to make sure that I had faith for them, and I had faith
Mhm.
for myself.
What about for you, Marlo? That's why I brought it up, because there were people, I had COVID, and you're like, okay, you're praying, I'm believing, I'm walking in it. But it was that little twinge of wow, because around you, people were dying. So what about you? And you've been in this game for 10 years.
Yes, I've seen my, unfortunately, share of death when in children,
Right.
because
Wow. Ooh.
cancer doesn't discriminate. I think I always try to come from a place of gratitude. There's a lot of people who are sick. I'm thankful that my hospital always provided enough PPE anytime I needed, because I've seen there were nurses catching it just because they didn't have a mask. That's crazy.
Really?
That's insane.
Oh,
I think, there's the health aspect is there too, but a lot of people lost jobs. Like, I have to be grateful that I get to go to a job that's paying me to take care of people.
I
You know what I
understand.
mean? I think perspective is everything. And
Yes.
when you go in with that, I'm just like, okay, so I just have to do what I can in
Mhm.
protecting them, not bringing it home to my family. You know, my mother caught it working at a nursing home, and it's probably because they were downplaying it, and trying to not cause fear. A lot of times there was a lot of not enough preparation, and then
Yes.
that's how she caught it, and thankfully she didn't give it to me or my kids, but then it's those kind of things that you think about.
Sure, most definitely. What are some of the things, Jessica, you think, do you feel that the general public didn't realize, from your perspective, that you had to face on the front line? Because I don't know if the news really told us everything that was going on with you guys. Meaning, because you're in it, you guys were in it almost every day. Were there some things that we just didn't know what that was going on?
I just felt like they didn't know the capacity of the hospitals and the
Okay.
conditions that we started off as,
Wow.
because starting off, we didn't have PPE. We didn't have enough supplies to even. We had trash bags. I'm gonna be real with you. We had trash bags
Right.
there. We had people donating handmade masks just for us to wear to take care of
Really?
others. The beginning of the first wave, so we didn't have N95 masks, because a lot of things was changing where they were taking all our N95 masks, and they were kind of like hiding them, and they were like we couldn't use
Mm.
them because we didn't need to use them, and then all of a sudden it changed where like we had to use them. So now they're like, oh, you have this one, you have to reuse it till it rips. So it was insane. And also, like, we had to spray down our gowns because we had to rewear them because we ran out of them. So it was crazy the first wave.
Mm.
Transferring to a different hospital in LAJ, they had enough PPE.
Okay.
Coming from St. Cass, they didn't have.
Okay.
But LIJ, they did have enough PPE. They had enough N95 masks. They had enough surgical masks. They had enough gowns for us to wear. So, coming from that perspective to this one, like we was through the trenches. So we were like getting donations from families every
Oh, awesome.
day just for us
Awesome.
to wear masks, just to us to be safe and covered. My mom was always giving me N95 masks because she was
Oh,
able to
good.
get some. So she was like, "Here, just take this with you. I want you to be safe." And so that's what we had to fight with. And I felt like a lot of people didn't know that behind doors. And
Mhm.
also the fact that like we had to deal with our our floors being overcapacitated and not having enough nurses, because our nurses started to go down too. They started to end up getting COVID as well. So now we're becoming short staffed, you know?
Wow. Marlo, for you, was there anything that the public that we didn't know, to Jessica's point, that we just didn't know that you guys were going through behind doors, behind the scenes?
I mean, to echo a lot of what, Jessica has said, because it's like we know as much as you guys know. There's no
Okay.
hidden agenda. Like, people are really sick. Like, I think, especially in other parts of the country where they weren't getting hit, no, like when I was on one of the adult floors, 1 minute someone's like fine laying there, then they have them on a non-rebreather, which is like the mask with the
Yeah.
nasal cannula, and
Yeah.
then they become incontinent, which means they can't hold what's in their bowels, and you know, tough decisions I think had to be made as far as like maybe in using your resources, because like staff is limited. You don't want to expose people, so it's horrible how certain decisions had to be made, like
Mhm.
maybe we don't go full code on this person because the chances don't look good. You have to figure out and preserve what seems to be the best decision at the time. And I don't I don't envy anyone who had to make those decisions. When you're listening to overhead code after code
Yeah.
after code, it felt like a death sentence, because you hear it on the same floor. You're like, oh, it was a rapid response. Now it's a code blue, and then
Mm. Well, I want to go further with that when we come back from commercial break, because you said something that's very interesting, Marlo, too. You guys were surrounded by nothing but death.
Yep.
And I understand in your profession, I understand you have to see it, but it's one thing to see it and then to be surrounded by it so much. I remember hearing at NASA University Medical Center, Newmec, that literally we know a couple of people in our church that worked there. They had trailers and they had nothing but bodies in the trailers. And they would say to us, literally, people were dying just back to back to back. But we're going to take a commercial break because I want to get your take on that, what it was like to literally be surrounded by death. We'll be right back. I want to take this time to thank our viewing audience for your support on Real Talk with Jean Price. We have some exciting news. We are now going to be featured on YouTube as well as Facebook. We have had an opportunity to discuss debt cancellation, the pandemic. We've discussed depression, anxiety. We even discussed what it's going to be like to go back to school, how our restaurants going to fare. You don't want to miss what we have upcoming on Real Talk with Jean Price. So remember, join me on YouTube and Facebook with Real Talk with Jean Price every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. I'll see you soon on Real Talk with Jean Price. Have you been enjoying the show? Make sure you comment and like. Tell us what you want to talk about. It might be featured on the next Real Talk with Jean Price.
More more states reaching breaking points as the coronavirus pandemic hits new highs.
A dire picture of a virus spiraling out of control.
We believe we're going to have to be taking additional steps.
The problem is that this is an evolving situation. Literally every day we learn a little bit more about it.
The National Guard now rushing in to relieve prison inmates who are currently moving COVID victims into mobile morgues.
To exercise resilience, some change in circumstances must have happened. Some change in circumstances must have happened. The idea is to understand your belief system. Your beliefs impact your feelings. Your feelings impact how you think about things, and your thoughts ultimately impact how you act and respond. I discovered this truth not through some bolt from the clouds, some specific aha moment, but from going through and escaping my own hell.
Welcome back to Real Talk. We're discussing nurses on the front line, and we have two sheroes in our midst tonight, Jessica Leclerc and Marlou Desir. And they are helping us to understand what it was like behind the scenes of being nurses that have had to endure with COVID-19 like never before. Before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about death and being surrounded by it day after day when the COVID-19 hit in the first wave. And it's interesting, ladies, I have to tell you, I heard on the news tonight, there was a batch of, and we're going to get to the vaccines in 1 second, but there was a batch of vaccines that people, I think it was on the Yankees or something, that people, they have COVID now and they took the vaccine. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to go back, Marlo. What was it like, though? Of course, death is a part of your profession and you're around it rather. But what was it like to be surrounded?
Oh, it's surreal. You hope that you're not next in that number. I think it helps you to appreciate life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what else can you do if you allow yourself to be engulfed by it? It's just, and it is sad, and you have to allow yourself to feel those feelings. That's true. But I feel like to be effective, I have to, like I said, see a different perspective and shift that and make it not so much about the loss, or at least even with the death, in doing my part, that they somehow die with dignity, that they don't feel like they were alone, because there's only so much I can do.
You know, I know of a family, ladies, that their father got COVID. And I think, Jessica, you mentioned before how you had to do FaceTime with people and people that are very close to my husband and I. And they had to see their father, their last words with their dad, ladies, was through FaceTime. How have you had people that have had to, and you mentioned it, Jessica, but how was it like just being able to help those families at that moment? Because that had to be such a surreal moment. It's one thing that, you know, you miss your loved ones when they pass away, but to pass away in that fashion, how did you, were you able to help people get through that?
Yeah, we were able to FaceTime people, but it was sad, like, you know, because like a lot
Yeah.
of them cried on the phone. A lot of them were like, you know, a lot of patients cried too. Like they cried and was like, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I'm gonna miss you, I love you.
Oh,
It was
gosh.
hard because, you know, as you're sitting there and you're trying to be strong for the patient, you're trying not to tear up too. Because
Right.
you're tearing up and you're like, he doesn't know if he's gonna survive, and I don't know if he's gonna survive. So all I can do is the best that we can do to save him.
Right.
So when he's sitting there, he's fearful. I remember like one patient I had, he was like, he was getting intubated because his oxygen was really low, it was dropping. And
Mm-hmm.
he was so scared. He's like, I just want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, we have to intubate you. And he was like, oh, well, I don't think my heart can take it. And he ended up dying afterwards. And he was able to speak to his wife right before he got intubated to tell her what happened. And then he didn't make it the next day. So I I saw that and I was just like I didn't expect him because he was young, and I think that's a lot what a lot of people thought too, that just because
Yeah.
he was young, he wasn't gonna get it, and there was,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I've seen people die with it. Even like my boyfriend's best friend died with COVID, and he was 31. So it's a lot. It's a lot, and you don't know when when it was gonna hit you, if it was gonna hit you. So it was just hard because like family aren't expecting their loved ones to just leave to the hospital and
Yeah.
never come back.
Right. Listen, to our viewing audience, if you have any questions, please chime in, and you can write it in the chat to Jessica and Marlu, because they're ladies that we're honoring tonight because they are on the front line. They are risking their lives, because really that's what you ladies are doing. You're risking your lives. I mean, you do that every day as a nurse, but to do it in a world that we're living in with COVID being the way that it is. Marlu, I just want to go back to the vaccines. And again, let me just state as a disclaimer, I'm not saying anybody should get the vaccine. That's just not what I'm saying. I just wanted to go from the vantage point of, is the vaccine, in your opinion, really helping us with COVID-19? And the reason I'm asking is what I said earlier about, I heard on the news tonight how members of the Yankees or something like that was on the news, they got COVID and they had the vaccine.
Yes. I think personally that there needs to probably be a better job at educating. As
Okay,
much as they push for it, the vaccine has never claimed to
point. Good point.
cure COVID or prevent COVID. They
Mhm.
still encourage the same kind of precautions. Like they still want everyone to social distance. They still
Yes.
want, the mask. And there's also different strains, so it's kind of like the flu. When they do the flu vaccine, you do what they think is the most prevalent and what is usually the year before. But if something new hits, like I've gotten the flu before and we were required to get the flu vaccine. So it's not to say that you can't get it. Their their take is that the symptoms that you'll have will be less because you have it, but it doesn't mean that you can't get it. And I
Right.
think that, in a push to want to return to some kind of normalcy or open the world back up, people have to remember you can still get it. You can still pass it on. And if
Yeah.
anything, it can be almost more dangerous because if you're a silent carrier passing it to someone else, thinking that you're covered, they might not be covered. And it won't, and it clearly does not respond to everyone in the same way. So I think
Good
that
point.
is something that people need to keep in mind with the
Yes.
vaccine.
What do you think, Jessica, as far as that? Thank you for that. That's an excellent point, Marla, that you brought up. What do you think? Now, let me, before you answer, I didn't take the vaccine only because of the fact that I have the blood clot that I went through last year, and me hearing, again, it may be because I need to be educated more. I'll be the first to say that. Thank you for that. But just knowing that people were getting blood clots, something, and this is sometime after the vaccine, I heard, I don't know. In my mind, I was just like, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I don't know. And I spoke to my doctor about it, and he was like, if don't let that be a fear to stop you from getting the vaccine. But he understood why I felt the way I felt, because I had a blood clot, and it was really, I really went through a lot with that last year. What do you think, Jessica?
Trust me, I had the same fear.
Oh,
Just because I was like, COVID just came and we already have a vaccine. It's not like the flu where it took 4 years
right.
for a vaccine to come out. We literally had a vaccine in like the end of the
Right.
year. So I was fearful too. Like I was like, I was kind of iffy. I was like, I don't know if I should take it, or I don't know if I should, because listen, the whole year I haven't gotten COVID. Knock on wood. So
Thank God.
I was like, do I need to take it? I kept asking my mom. I kept asking my dad because we were still figuring out too. So
Right.
my dad got it. My mom got it. I'm gonna get it soon. Because I have to sign up for it at my job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And my sister is thinking about getting it as well. Like I understand the fears of the COVID vaccine because you never know. You can end up getting it after you get the vaccine. There's
Right.
also the Johnson and Johnson one, which they pulled back, that was giving
Yes.
rare blood diseases as well. So I feel like the best thing you can do is always continue your research.
Mm-hmm.
Always continue to look for. I always say Pfizer is the best one. Because I haven't heard anybody get a lot of uh,
Interesting.
you know, pushback from Pfizer, because it's actually the most accurate one. It's 96% compared to the others, which was less percentage than that. Um,
Okay.
Moderna, I think, was like 94%, and then Johnson and Johnson was 65% effective.
Wow.
I
That's low.
think, yeah, so I think you guys just have to like look at those numbers, and you can choose which vaccine you do want.
Yeah.
If the one that you don't want is not available, I always suggest you can always wait. They're always gonna have more.
Right.
But always do your research, because the vaccine is here to help us, but we also still have to keep our social distancing. We have to
Yes.
continue wearing our mask. We have to continue being mindful of the fact that, listen, if this is the capacity we can be at, respect the capacity that we have to be at.
I
Respect
like
the
that.
fact that we have to continue to be 6 feet
Hmm.
apart. Because even though my parents got their vaccine, I'm still wearing mask. I'm still
Hmm.
keeping our 6 feet distance. Even though we see each other, even though we're all in healthcare environment, we're always making sure that we're all protected together. So I feel like as long as we educate our family and we educate our friends to continue
Yes.
the social distance, we'll move forward in a good direction.
Right.
I know
Right.
there are others that don't feel like it's real. They don't feel like, I just feel like they're just not educated enough.
Yeah.
Um, so as long as we try to educate more and just continue to talk to people and tell them about it, I feel like we would be moving towards a better direction.
Excellent. Marlu, what has the pandemic taught you about yourself?
Ooh,
I
that
you, Jessica.
Oh,
I don't know. I think it taught me that I don't know. I feel like in ways people don't care about each other as much as we think we do.
Oh,
Um, I think that it teaches you that you have to do what's best for you, that you have to prioritize what's really important. I think it allowed some people to like sit back and reevaluate things because a lot of things we didn't have time for because we were moving so much. I don't believe like the things like George Floyd would have happened if everyone was on a plane, on
that's
a
good.
vacation, at work. It allows you to really sit back and like reevaluate the world and the people in it and how you function in it. I think, it makes you think about your health or
Mhm.
even just what the legacy you leave for the ones behind you if you happen to go today. Like, are you really prepared? Have you prepared them for your loss?
Good. Yes.
Um, those are the kind of things that I think it's allowed a lot of reflection and to take things at face value.
Wow. That was good. Very powerful. What about you, Jessica? What has the pandemic taught you about yourself?
the pandemic has taught me that family is everything,
Mm.
and not all the time you should be working. Reason why I say this. Reason why I say this, because
Okay.
we get so caught up with working. Oh, we gotta work, and sometimes you need a mental day.
Mm-hmm.
I realize that a lot with the pandemic. A lot of us are coming out with depression. A lot of us are coming out with different mental health issues. A lot of us need
Mm-hmm.
to speak to therapists. Like, we've had a tough time this year. This year has taken a toll on all of us, all
Yeah.
around.
All of us.
So
Yes.
I feel like your mental health is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I say this so much because we get so caught up in our lives that sometimes we need to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a break is always needed. A break is to pull back, reflect on yourself, reflect on, are you okay today? Are
Mm-hmm.
you okay to help others today? Are
Mm-hmm.
you okay to be in an environment where you're helping others? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like sometimes you need to take that day. You need to call in sick a day, just for your mental health, because your mental health matters. Because if you're not in the right space, how can you be in the right space for others? So I always say that mental health matters, and it's been clear this year for me that I want to make sure that I'm good to take care of others. And if I'm not good, I can't take care of others, and
Yeah.
also that spending time with family matters as well. We get so caught up and we don't spend time and be like, oh, I'll see you next week, or oh, I'll see you later, or I'll talk to you another time. This year has really brought it like, hey, call the person that you haven't called, said that you was going to call them, um, talk to them more. Say, hey, how is your day today? Like, just
That's so true.
a simple, hey, what's up? Even a text. Just do it more. I think that really shined this year because we forget about that when we're so caught up in our own lives, and we don't, we're so caught up in work, we're so caught up in bills, we're so caught up in this, that we have to kind of take a step back and just take care of ourselves and care about others.
You both said some powerful things just now in dealing with what the pandemic taught you. From somebody looking on the outside to the sheroes on the front line, one of the things that it taught me for the two of you and others like you was to learn to appreciate what you do. And it's so true because I was 26 years in the healthcare field as an administrator, but I work with doctors and nurses and, fellows and residents and so forth. And to see the work that you put forth effortless. I think that's the word that stands out for me for the both of you. You do it it was just effortless. Like there wasn't a second thought, no, I can't do it. It was no, I have to do it.
Yeah.
And when I look at the two of you, it's like, wow. And then not only that, but you even make our culture look good.
Yeah.
I have to tell you both that you make our, and I have to say it because, we've gone through a lot and we kind of touched a teeny bit on George Floyd, but you make our culture look good. You make it look healthy. You make it look worth it. And to the viewing audience that are on tonight, I just want you to write something in the chat to just kind of honor these sheroes tonight, because they could have been taking care of somebody who we know or who we love, or just taking care of whoever you've been taking care of. And we honor you for that. It doesn't have to be that way. But Marlu, we're going to be winding down shortly, but I want to know if you had to change some things in your perspective of getting through COVID-19, being the nurse that you have been for 10 years, what is something more you would want to do?
I think probably maybe try a routine instead of routine, and kind of like how Jessica was saying, certain like mental health
Okay.
avenues maybe to explore, because sometimes you don't realize how deep something is until you talk it out, you
Yes.
know? Yes. I think if it's just meditating before my shift, that probably could have, just to get you in the right mindset. I mean, I definitely pray on it,
Yeah.
definitely, but I think maybe some of those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. What about you, Jessica? And before you respond, Jessica, Charlene wrote in the chat, I applaud your compassion, courage, and I think she's got more that she's going to be writing. But thank you for that, Charlene, because people really do honor you guys. What about you, Jessica? What's something
So
more?
for me, I definitely want to go into ICU because I
Okay,
kind of want to go for the critical care.
I would say critical
I
care.
don't, it opened my eyes more with COVID. That's something that I really want to do. I know with the pandemic, it kind of highlighted the craziness that we're going through, but I'm all for it. And I always make sure that, of course, like I said, I touched on mental health is very important. I always do this before I go into work. Pray to God, rock out, and walk in, so I can have like a good shift. And also, like what I am very very big on is showing compassion to your teammates and your coworkers, because
Mm,
sometimes they need it too. You don't know what they're dealing with at home, and then they come here and they come to work, and like helping them out is just showing them like, hey, you know what, my team looks out for me too. So I always care for my coworkers and make sure I'm in the great mindset, because that's the only way we can get through this together, because this is your family at work. So
yes, that
as
is
long
true.
as we rock through it together, listen, we can take over the world. So as long as take care of your family at work, take care of your family at home, and just pray God to just guide you through another day.
Yeah. So, Charlene, I'm going to go back to what she said to you ladies as we're honoring you tonight. Charlene said, I applaud your compassion, courage, and perseverance. Pastor Jacqueline Hadley Eccles wrote, thank you for giving of yourselves to others. And
Thank you.
those are very, thank you. And to everyone, even for those that didn't write, I know you're grateful for what these ladies do on the front line every day or whatever day they have to. Marlo, if you had to say something to somebody tonight as we're winding down on the show, what would it be to encourage somebody that wants to become a nurse in a day like today?
Yes. I think you need to know yourself and what you really want. Um, it's it's a selfless job. If you feel like there's certain things like I won't do, it's not for you.
Right,
I think
right.
there's a level of humility that comes with it. Be prepared for the hard days. I think the three, because I work 3 nights. I think that schedule helps you to balance, regular life and work life, and know your why, because we're not always going to be, you know, wanting to. You don't always want to go in. Some days you just want to call out. Some days, why did I do this? You have to go back to your why, because you won't always be passionate about it, but to be dedicated and consistent, I think, is important.
That's powerful. That's good. That's very good. What about you, Jessica? There's a nurse out there. She's getting ready to graduate and she's going to be on the front line.
um, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna cry. That I will tell you, it's gonna happen. You might not know when it's gonna happen, but it is gonna happen because we all go through it. We have a moment where we cry at work.
Wow.
um, this was a year. Listen, I've cried so many times I can't even count. But honestly, you'll get through it. It's just a hurdle you have to go through. Push forward. Don't give up. Don't let anybody tell you this isn't meant for you, because this is the path that you took. This is the path that God guided for you. So
Right.
move forward in it and like bask in the glory of doing it, because you're gonna be grateful of it at the end. And also know, like, there's so many specialties out there. You
Ah,
can do
yes.
anything as a nurse. Like,
Yeah.
you can do peds, you can do infants, you can do mother baby, you can do cardiac care, you can do so much. So don't think like, hey, you don't like this specialty that you can't do anything else. Because
Right. Right.
that's the best thing about nursing, is that you can do absolutely anything.
Wow.
So don't like limit yourself. If you're good with this and you want to move on, you can always move on, move forward, move up. It's always there for you.
Mm, that's awesome. I do have one other question. Another question for Marlo. I know you've been in Peds for 10 years. Was there a different area that you wanted to be a part of, or has it always been pediatrics?
No, actually, crazy enough, when I was applying, I was open to anything. I definitely knew I never wanted to do med surge. That's the one that they say everyone should do. I knew it wasn't for me. And when I met with the recruiter, they were like, "Oh, there's like med surge, there's like endocrine, which is like dealing with hormones and kidneys and stuff,
Right.
and there's hematology, oncology." And I was like, that sounds different. I wasn't scared of it. And fun, I guess, I don't know if it was almost like a sign because my father passed of cancer, and it was almost like
Wow.
it came full circle.
Right.
And I kind of got to be the nurse that, the way that my family was comforted, I got to do that for kids. And
Wow.
I don't know, adults, we are a piece of work. Uh, and I don't know. I prefer the kids. Like, if they're sick, they're sick. If they're
Right.
feeling good, they're feeling good. They don't pretend. They don't fake.
Right.
And
Right.
because I get to work, I've had patients as young as 2 weeks old, as old
Oh,
as 27 years old. So I still
okay.
get to see
Okay.
a range. So Oh yeah, I'm never leaving.
That's why,
No.
that's why I wanted to ask that question, because Jessica is with the adults and
Yeah,
Margaret's
no.
like, no, I'm going to stick with the kids.
She
I'm
can
good.
enjoy all
You
of
can
them
enjoy it.
for the both of us. Okay?
Enjoy that
That's what
critical
I'm
care.
saying.
I get it.
You might start with adults and end up in peds. So I want them to know, like, listen, just because you started there doesn't mean that you have to
Right.
end there.
Right. Well, I want to thank you, ladies, and you have been such a blessing tonight. And to my viewing audience, thank you for chiming in the chat. We salute them tonight. Again, if you could just write something in the chat to them, it's so encouraging to let our sheroes know how we appreciate you guys being on the front line. Please know that Real Talk, we will support you. We will pray for you. We will continue to, my message for you guys is continue to do what you're doing, because know that you're making a difference. And to be able to sit and talk to the two of you tonight has been a blessing. It's very personally for me, not just because my daughter's a nurse, but I got to see the other side. And to me, it was so exciting to talk to the two of you. I got to understand pediatrics. I got to understand adults, med surg, whatever that was. So this has been so good. We're getting ready to close down the show. This has been great. We would like for you to please keep in touch with us. I would love to know how you're doing, what you're doing. We invite you to come back at any time. Our viewing audience, thank you tonight for being a part of the front line. And guess what? Being a part to help us. So thank you so much. Marcia Joseph just chimed in, and she said, thank you for your services. We honor and we appreciate all that you do. And I want you two to really know that from our hearts, we really do appreciate you guys. We really, really do. And if there's somebody out there, like you both said, if they want to do it, don't limit themselves. They can get out there and become the nurse that they need to be as well. Yeah. So thank you to our viewing audience for being on Real Talk with Jean Price on tonight. Remember, we are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, and guess what? We are on the Inspired Living Network every Friday at 1 o'clock. You don't want to miss. We have something really special coming up in the next month. You better stay tuned. We have good stuff coming up. We'll see you soon. Join us again next week on Real Talk with Jean.
All right, guys.
Good night.
States reaching breaking point as a coronavirus pandemic hits new highs.
A dire picture of a virus spiraling out of control.
We believe we're going to have to be taking additional steps.
The problem is that this is an evolving situation. Literally every day we learn a little bit more about it.
The National Guard now rushing in to relieve prison inmates who are currently moving COVID victims into mobile morgues.
To exercise resilience, some change in circumstances must have happened. Some change in circumstances must have happened. The idea is to understand your belief system. Your beliefs impact your feelings. Your feelings impact how you think about things, and your thoughts ultimately impact how you act and respond. I discovered this truth not through some bolt from the clouds, some specific aha moment, but from going through and escaping my own hell.